continue operating like the Vatican. Then secondly, the mere fact that this happened, these acts can happen everywhere, but now you are saying that they could have been an inside job. So that goes back to the question, ask me the issue of theft and how far will you go to ensure that that doesn't happen again? It will depend on how swift and efficiently the investigations are done and whether appropriate punishment is meted out, or it may not be punishment but people taking responsibility, because sometimes taking responsibility, you may not be the person who committed the crime, but maybe you failed by your duty and supervision.
Abdul. Money matters.
You see, the entire world has moved digital. And now we have plastic money, we have air money, which just is transmitted, digitally. And as you see, the more we go digital, the more risk for cybercrime. Why? Because it's not very easy now to come and do a bank robbery in these days. That you come break in a bank and carry billions of money is literally impossible. So the bad boys and girls of community, of society now, must find a way of also upping their act. And they just go on their computers and steal billions. And that's what has happened, first of all, is not strange. It's happening the world all over. I blame BOU for one reason. Because there is a fiduciary relationship between them and us. That's not Bank of Uganda money. It's people's money. And if people's money has been stolen, you have to reach out and say, by the way, we are the trustee, but something wrong has happened with the resources which we are supposed to be keeping for you. So the statement should have been there, official statement. As to the content, that's another matter, because you don't also want to jeopardize investigation. But to come out clearly with an official statement, then the people know that there is a problem here, and some of them actually could have some information which can help in investigation. Oscar, everybody managing resources should now know you need to have safeguards of your systems. Everybody. Because you see, that is the options are not now many for thieves. They get just the number, just getting your PIN number, and they manipulate it and money leaves. You remember a few years ago, I got so much concerned about the mobile money platform because there was no law. I even took an initiative to go to court. The money at the mobile money platform was almost 5 times of all the money in the banks combined.
That's true.
But there was no legal framework for it. And let me tell you, I had to rescue this country, because if I had done that, and anything happened to either MTN or Airtel and so on, what would have happened? It would be a financial crisis in this country. The service was good, but without a legal framework, without safeguards. So eventually they took it up and we enacted the payment system law, where it is now covered and so on, with all the safeguards and so on, the assurance you need and so on. So I think either all banks and other financial institutions take note of this, especially the central bank. At the risk of sounding to know more than I do, it is not the first time.
She's not comforting. The David Besigye, Lydia, as you're coming on, Kawagam says, billions
The
are stolen. From billion is stolen by security guards, 500 million discovered in a strong, all in 1 week. What does this reflect? This is on X, formerly Twitter. So, Lydia.
Oscar, the cybercrime, especially in the financial sector, is real. Some young, sharp, talented people, even audible experts, have learned how to manage this telecommunication, the revolution of the IT. And by just, they don't need they just need a computer, sit somewhere quietly, and their wires work. They don't need a bullion van, they don't need any fight. It's just on the desk and the lines are banged and money comes out. In some of these countries, in our neighbors, where Honorable Katuntu is a frequent neighbor, there was a young man at a university in the Department of IT with their 2 other friends. They neatly went into the payroll of members of parliament and fixed like 3 more payments in the emoluments, and they were paid. It was discovered after 3 years. Parliament, through Ministry of Finance, was wiring money. And these were under 35. I don't know if Katuntu picked that story. On the payroll of Parliament. So they were aligned as like members of Parliament, and they earned emoluments for 3 years. So in the 4th year,
it was an inside job.
When they were preparing to go for elections, they are looking at which constituency. That's when these payments were discovered. So for Uganda, due diligence is important, but like my colleagues have said, payments go through systems. There are those people whose biometric that trigger must first of all happen, then to goes. That biometric can only be held by one person. So by now we should have heard that some people have been arrested or they have been taken for questioning. Because where did your biometric? Because even if nobody, according to science, shares a biometric, nobody. You remember the story of Ukazinda? The PS at that time of PM's office, the same story, had to say that for him was a whistleblower. So we wait for investigations whether the system has been bypassed, whether there was
so many stages one will have to bypass. Bypass one.
Whatever it is,
in the next one.
Common sense tells us there must be an inside job.
Yes.
So we can jump Katuntu, but surely Sydney's biometric must be, caught, or the same way maybe Musisi, who is a lawyer for these people, the reptiles also. So, what does this tell us to do is, I think the byline is to be vigilant. You must be vigilant every day. That's why some people go and reconcile. There's that daily reconciliation, or every hour reconciliation. What is money leaving, money entering, money leaving? There must be that vigilance. If you don't do vigilance, definitely you'll be a victim of cybercrime.
But there's another issue which...
and then in the evening when you log
that vigilance of checking and reconciling is very, very important.
I was thinking about this week. That every institution must have also a substantive head.
Oh, so Bank of Uganda does not have a governor.
It must have a substantive head. And
so the back ends with the head of the institution.
Sometimes when you lack that, there's a lot of uncertainty on 1 or 2 issues. What to talk about,
you can call them
effective
lapses,
controls, and so on. So it's not
people
like
are still on the edge of the chair.
Now things are moving. Because of lack of a head, you have problems like this sometimes happening.
So we should expect an appointment of the Bank of Uganda governor this week, so that we have...
You're a member of SEC.
Does SEC appoint governors, really? I wanted to ask Katuntu, the COSASE report. Oscar, just give this to me. The COSASE report was comprehensive. Has there been any effort to make those amendments you proposed for the bank?
They've done a lot of reforms.
Amendments.
They have really done a lot of reforms.
Because that also...
and they have consulted. Sometimes they've come and said, by the way, there was this. What made you take this decision? Or what formed your decision? And we've given them that information. And they have done their best. And they have restructured a few things at Bank of Uganda. They have.
Let's have a quick comment.
So we hope that the appointment
John
of the
can
leadership
conclude.
will come soon,
Yeah.
so that the bank ends, the accountability ends with the head of the institution.
Us and the
Very quick one. Yes, I agree with Honorable Katun to that. How serious does the appointing authority himself take these institutions that a Bank of Uganda can be for this long? One time, as judiciary, we had an acting CJ and who was at the same time the acting DCJ for over 2 years. But then, secondly, it all goes back to, if you read reports from COSASE, from Auditor General, there is a general malaise, institutional malaise, that people think that you can do something and go with it. So, which is accountability at the bottom of it all, that how strongly do public institutions think that they have to account. That is, because it's also naive to imagine that Bank of Uganda will be an oasis of efficiency amidst a sea of dead institutions.
Abdul, I should tell you, George is a future politician. So when you are talking about activists that use bad language, he's not one of them. He's a future politician.
There are many activists who don't use who use good language. They communicate because activism is not all that negative.
Yeah. John Morgan, you have a past lead of the FIA, Financial Intelligence Authority.
Yes.
You have Georgia, who works with...
It sounded more like a CIA.
they also have to do that.
But Oscar, before George, can Sydney maybe at some time tell us the gravity of the cybercrime, at least in Uganda? All that's classified information. It's a serious issue.
But let me ask John, then I'll come back to you now that Lydia has asked a question of you. But John, you know, be careful with your man. How careful can you be?
You can just disappear from.
So I think
These things are trust issues.
I think first of all we must invest in very serious cyber security protocols. In some of these institutions, they are holding a lot of money and they have very small IT departments with young people who are not well compensated. This is a recipe for disaster. So I think we need to prioritize issues of cybersecurity. For Bank of Uganda, more so because it's a supervisor of financial institutions. If you're a supervisor and you yourself are unable to have the necessary safeguards and the necessary risk mitigation mechanisms, then you cannot roll it over, or you cannot demand financial institutions to adopt the same. So BOU, as a matter of urgency, needs to ensure that these things are handled. Then I would also agree with Honorable Katuntu on the issue.
They are supposed to be checking on what the systems of the commercial banks.
Exactly.
But if yours is in...
It's not working.
Exactly. So
if yours is vulnerable, how will those that you're
So you encourage bad practices in the industry, and there's something called a data penetration test, which Bank of Uganda itself should be going through. What you do is that you actually hire hackers and they try to hack into your system.
Yes.
Okay. You hire them, they hack into your system to test, just like they do stress tests for financial institutions. They should do the same for ICT systems. So I think that's something
like you do a road test for a vehicle you have come from the garage.
Exactly. Then the issue of a substantive governor is something. The issue of a substantive governor is something that is of concern to us, and I think we should all appeal to His Excellency to appoint someone, good or bad, let him make the decision, so that we see.
Even just in this studio,
Yeah, because there was
see there is a candidate who can be a good governor.
there was
We're sending cases here.
the worst decision is the failure to make a decision. So it's good that you make a decision and then you can assess whether it's good or bad. And then the other issue is that BOU should also look at these third-party providers of ITC services, because they also present vulnerabilities. If you look at most of the financial institutions that have been, whose systems have been hacked into, the gateway has been through third-party providers and collusion from staff. And I would want to say and put it on record that in this case, without jeopardizing investigations, I believe, I'm using that statement, I believe that there was internal collusion, because just like you mentioned, all the systems of approval were properly followed, you know. So, and that's why some of these institutions were not. And then finally, we need to ensure that we improve confidence in the financial sector, through better communication and through better addressing of issues. If you have an incident and you say we are going to follow a court process, after it's concluded, then come back to the public and let them know.
I have someone complaining, Marco on X, formerly Twitter, says a topic heavy on cybercrime, and there was no technology resource for capital gang. Hearing people talk, connecting wires on the program is just underwhelming. So, Marco, you have no respect for the immediate past head of the FIA? Come on, Marco.
countries, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's a system that is reliable. But like I said earlier, any system is vulnerable to the human beings that control it. So as long as you have a human-machine interface, if the human is compromised, if there's a lack of integrity in the human, then the system, however well designed it is, will be vulnerable. Because there has to be someone who initiates the payment, then someone who approves the payment, and then there's the supervisor of the approval, and then there's the last person, the one who authorizes the payment, and yes, and these are at different positions, because one is at the ministry where the money is coming from, and then the other one is the one that initiates is at the ministerial department. Then the two in the middle are the Ministry of Finance, and then the last one is the one one is at the Ministry of Finance, in particular the Accountant General's office, and then the final one is at the central bank. So it cannot be that a hacker can compromise all these systems without a detection. And the way the system is designed, by the way, it is so fast. A payment can be initiated if everyone is on their, they don't have to be on their desk. They can approve from wherever they are, as long as they have machines with the right credentials. It can be done within, even within 10 minutes. The payment can be initiated and paid. But government took a decision to slow down the system deliberately so that people are given time to breathe. Because and this was from previous experience where money had been wired. Because the system is so efficient, money had been wired previously to other countries, but in a similar time to this one, but it was good before it went out. So the decision was taken to slow down the system, so that at least it takes a day or two, so that if there's anything, then it can be discovered. So for me, the greater question to be pondered is how come this happened and it was not discovered immediately, and that's why it points to more to do with being an insider job than a hacking job, which brings us to the prevalence of cyber crimes in this country now. The number, especially the police, ourselves, well, not ourselves, but FIA, yes, and other agencies that deal with cyber crimes, including the intelligence. So it's very prevalent. Obviously, with advancement in technologies, there are also all these vulnerabilities. And as you know, as people are designing these systems, payment systems and other financial systems, accounting systems, there are those who are also working very hard to see how to defeat this system. So that is why with this advancement in technologies, especially payment systems, because we have the different kinds of players. We have the aggregators, we have those who then the banks, the payment options themselves. Then we have so many financial technologies, the fintechs. So with increase in these advancements, there's obviously increase in financial in cyber crimes. But the good thing is that we also have robust laws, we have robust systems in place. But it all comes down to human nature, the nature that we're inherently born with, trying to beat systems and trying to commit crime, and that is, I think, cybercrime is one of those that is fastest growing in the country. But there have also been robust responses to the same. But this is an ongoing, it's like the fight between Walumbe and Kaikuzi. As people are being born, others must die. So, yes, that's what I can say. Yes.
Oscar. Yes. You see, it is true, Bank of Uganda has been on top of its game in terms of monetary policy and so on. They've done quite a pretty good job. But at the same time, there have been weaknesses in that bank also. And a few years ago, that bank was really divided up. There were internal fights and so on, undermining each other and camps, because everybody wanted to ascend to what position and so on. And when you have that sort of environment, you create, people who will be trying to say, well, if this one's holding this office and I do this, it will hit him hard and so on. So you need proper authority at management level. I remember saying at that time, when we were doing the probe of that central bank, that if it was a commercial bank, it would have been closed. Because there are things which nobody would have accepted. It would have been closed. Because everything that can go wrong went wrong. And if it was a commercial bank, there is no way Bank of Uganda would have remained open. That you close one bank, you don't account, you go for another one, you don't account, you go for another one. And accounting means you've taken over assets and liabilities of a commercial bank. And as I talk now, they have not accounted for a single bank they closed, not even a single one. So circumstances like that and lack of effective leadership and somebody who would be accountable either to the appointing authority or even to the people whose money is being kept by. Let me tell you, you don't have this sort of problems.
As I told you, mercantile people are agitating.
Yes.
Go on, sorry, conclude.
So to me, the president should appoint a substantive governor. Please, those who are listening and they are close to him, please tell him who else could I have?
Sick. Liz in Kampala sends a headline from New Vision, Thursday paper, 22,000 IDs in wrong hands. Can you imagine that? This was in the government newspaper. And John Walugembe people, you should be pleased. Han says, John Walugembe, the submission of this fellow deserves accolades. Should appoint him governor of BOU.
The SMEs will be crying.
Yes. Back to you, George Musi, on to the final topic of gang. People have been posting things, and I don't know, you lawyers, you're going to have real issues now with the Dr. Kizza Besigye case. You know, people post a thing, I have analyzed this audio. How when people post things like that, and it's all over social media, as if there's some guru saying, I have analyzed this good video. Sorry.
Of law. Intelligence can be anything, including rumors, including doctored things. I have represented a number of people in the General Court Martial. And one of the reasons why we have problems with civilians being tried there, or any other issue there, or any other people, is that sometimes the threshold of evidence seems to be lower than the ordinary standard known to the law. For starters, if you have such I want to call it a highly sensitive matter, or like saying Dr. Kizza Besigye was plotting to undermine Uganda's security in Geneva, and why would it be on social media in the first place? Why would any intelligence officer or prosecutor, for that matter, let such a high sensitive piece of evidence, quote unquote, be on social media before even in law there's what we call disclosure, to tell the state tells the defense that this is what we are going to rely on, this is the evidence we're going to rely on. So it tends to point fingers to the speculation that it's fake, it's meant to be a red herring, meant to or prosecute the case in the public court to form an opinion, already, like people are already making, that some are those who we're living in a polarized society, those who believe in it are the ones who are giving the layers of authenticity, then those who are not are dismissing it off. So for me, I want to push it to that one. I don't think that any serious prosecutor would let such a serious piece of evidence be seen on social media.
Run around on social media.
And I would want to imagine, I don't have the capacity to ascertain but I'm just looking at the circumstantial factors around it to imagine that it may not be for purposes of an evidential value. It may be for purposes of bringing evidence in the public opinion court, which it already is doing. For me, the bigger issue is we earlier talked about not losing track that the question of trial of civilians in court martials is something that needs to be settled, like to use Abdul's words, as early as yesterday. We have 2 constitutional court judgments, Oscar, in the last 4 years, pronouncing themselves very strongly and even using hard words that the files involving civilians should be immediately transferred to the ordinary court. So, of course, the Attorney General was granted a stay by the Supreme Court, a stay of execution, meaning that the status quo can remain, which I found also quite uncomfortable. But the Supreme Court undertook to ensure that this judgment is delivered as early as possible. So, in the first place, why would you charge someone who is uncomfortable with being in that forum? The essence of justice is that you are tried if what they call fair hearing, where you feel that you get justice, including where they are at par. So I want to look at those audios which are seen on social media in that same line, that it's an attempt to prosecute the case through the public eyes.
Sydney Asubo, you know, you are the former head of financial intelligence. When on social media says, I have analyzed. My view is that if the recordings are, who writes those things and who is the I have analyzed? You know, when you first see it, you think it's genuine until you see it is all over WhatsApp.
Now, what I will do is to draw a distinction between financial intelligence and the other forms of intelligence.
And the gun intelligence.
External security and internal security. Those ones are very distinct.
From the money, financial
Threshold lower.
So my expertise
you're part of the intelligence community.
is on financial. But what I'll say is that I will agree that this kind of information should not be in the public domain. True or false is not really for me. It is how did it even get into the public?
Yeah, you said that.
Into the public domain,
That's the test of
and not
standard.
only because of the seriousness of the charges, but for any crime, because evidence is supposed to handle that evidence determines whether it will be admissible in a court of law or not, because there are rules around how evidence, especially of that nature,
Is admissible.
can be handled. And these days, and I've seen decisions of courts where they're very, very careful when they handle evidence of that nature. There is an ongoing court case, the Anti-Corruption Court, where recordings have become a critical aspect of that trial. And many observers are of the view that this case will rise or fall on that on the admissibility of that evidence. Now, questions have been raised around how it was handled, the chain of evidence and things, and so on and so forth. So, for me, my concern will be in that regard. But how is this evidence being handled? How is it authentic? And even if it were authentic, for argument's sake, how the manner in which it is handled will also determine whether it will be admissible or not. So that, for me, those are the areas that will be of interest to me. Yes.
Abdul, I know you didn't author those ones saying, I have analyzed.
I have my own
issues with social media.
Yes, so but let me say this. I don't think what appears on social media is evidence for purposes of prosecution. No. That is purely public relations and politics. And that's where it ends. Because you see, an average lawyer would know that this is not the sort of evidence you now come and present in a court. Whoever leaked it didn't want that evidence to be used in court. So why did he leak it? For purposes of public consumption, politics, and justification maybe of why they were holding somebody. So you see, I had a short stint at the Directorate of Public Prosecution then as a state attorney. And a criminal law, the standard of proof is very, very high. Actually, it requires proof beyond reasonable doubt. And then the burden is by the prosecutor. You even don't have to say anything. You is being accused. To carry that burden to that standard is not a very easy job. It isn't. And there is a problem between the court martial and our orthodox courts. One time when General Tumwine was sharing the let his soul rest in peace, I gave him one of my books by Glanville Williams, Learning the Law. Because I went there at that time as one of the lawyers for General Tumukunde. And what was going on, I didn't understand. It was not like a court. So The following day I carried that book. You know, we used to get those books, you and your Sky. We still had the book allowances at the university. I would got the book bank and it picks those law books. I don't know when my brother here, when he went to university, you had that.
No, they had the photocopied materials. These are for photocopy.
That book is basically the basic of the law. So I donated to General Truman. I said, please at least read this.
Basics.
And then he told me one thing. He said, look here, this is the army, it's not a court. That's what he told me. This is the army. So this thing of thank you, but don't think it will guide me so much. We have our own rules. So to me, if it was an orthodox court, I don't think somebody would be very anxious, a serious prosecutor, to take that sort of evidence to court, whether it is authentic or it is not. And even if it was authentic, then he has undermined his credibility by it being a public document, or I don't know whether it's a document or evidence. There's no way to prove it at all. There's no way. And we go back to appeal to Chief Justice Alfonso Winyidolo that he should he should bring this conversation to an end, really.
Lydia?
You see, in all these matters, we also have what people call the overzealous. We began this debate today by talking about activists, but we also have overzealous people. But then these overzealous people spoil. They spoil. They may not know that they are spoiling. So these social media issues you are talking about, and those who are saying they have scrutinized beyond their own reasonable doubt, they are spoiling. Maybe it would have been a good piece of evidence, or they are spoiling a case, because at the end of the day, courts do not use what's in the social media. They use facts as presented in a particular designated forum. So that cannot really count. But like everybody else has said, the buck ends with the head of where people want to get justice. So I hope that the Chief Justice has heard and also has read, because he has been written to formally, but there's a lot of cries in many forums. Let him come out with his team and they decide on this matter decisively and in line with the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, so that everybody gets their day in court and you go home knowing whether you are going to serve or you have been freed. Where we are now, it's really not a very good thing for the Ugandans. Yeah.
John, in the commercial world as well, social media can be a menace.
Yeah. No, I think generally as a country we should all, and I'm speaking as people are running businesses, we want positive news coming out about Uganda. Every time we have a negative news, it makes people reconsider very many things about this country. And when investors come and bring money, when people choose to partner with local businesses, it helps the economy as a whole. So any kind of negative news like this one, because for me the bigger question would be deportation vis-a-vis extradition, and did we follow the rules, and then if we didn't follow the rules in the first place, and so on. So we must give a picture of the rule of law, and I would say that as a country, let's ensure that we promote. If there's something that you want to do that you think may not reflect well on their country and bring us more money and create jobs, then maybe these are things that one can always reconsider. Yeah.
Well, short, succinct response.
But why is Standard Chartered closing?
No, I think the issue is that
at
what you have
6 minutes to the end of it.
No, it's a very simple. Every bank has its own niche, and at some point they may find that a certain segment is not profitable. They are staying and they are focusing on the corporate clients and so on, but they're getting out of the retail.
Well,
there's more competition actually. It may actually mean a good thing. It may mean that local firms have now been able to chip away at.
Okay, so local banks can take up
Yeah,
what
local
the
banks.
Standard Chartered Bank was handling.
Exactly, and then you may find that
I don't know
circles,
how
because
many
if you
local
look
banks
at,
you are talking about.
We have for
not
Uganda
banks
local
necessarily,
commercial banks.
if you look at how many the circles and how people are saving through circles,
You
unit
just talked
trusts
about
and so
your
Opera has just said
mobile money. Eh?
Kaire says Walugembe hired influencers for his appointment to bank.
They are saying good things about
Maybe Lydia is one of Lydia is one of the influencers.
the influencers. Okay, I have heard.
I'll give Sydney Asubo last word on gang. I don't know how many other people.
No, you're talking about the banks first.
Okay.
The closure is, I don't know whether it's closure or
they're just selling
they are selling.
retail.
First of all, it is normal for banks to do what to sell and so on. It happens and so on. They reorganize. Barclays did it.
Nile Bank.
Yes, but Nile Bank had a little bit of problems and so on. But this is about business strategy, and if an investor in this sector, you need to know who are your clients. Are you going for small savers, the circles of the Musisis and Katuntus of this world, or are you going for the big fellows like the Lydia corporates who have big monies? Citibank operates from here, but I'm telling you, they don't have the sort of walk in and out clients. I'm sure Sidi knows this very well. So this is normal. And I thought if you are the responsible commercial bank, this is the time when they should be able to issue some sort of statement, because they can't do this without the authority of the central bank or the regulator. You should say, no, this is just a normal business transaction and so on. It has nothing to do with the confidence in the economy or the financial sector.
In the financial sector, you are going to have that.
Yes,
So
and
the statement is important.
It does, and then you might have a run on that bank.
That's the point.
And I sometimes wonder, this guy is holding these offices whether you said sometimes okay. I wanted to be humorous. So to me, I think this was the time, because people are like, maybe the economy is not doing well.
Yes.
Oh, that's why these banks are paying.
Speculation.
Bank I should get my money in case.
Maybe the money in the bank was stolen.
Close and so on. Or is it because of what has happened at Bank of Uganda? So it is affecting this.
It undermines
because
confidence in them.
the central bank is after the bank of the commercial banks and so on. So you cause a debate which is very, very unnecessary. And the central bank should come in and say, explain it. That this is normal and there is nothing, nobody is going to lose money.
Timothy Kalyeja is also weighing in on Twitter, formerly Twitter, Minister of State for Finance, General Duties. Is that the right person to comment on the BOU robbery in quotes and so on?
No, yes,
On the floor of
because
the
you
house.
see, the BOU is under the supervision of Minister of Finance. Yeah, so that is within his docket.
At least on the floor of the house as well.
And he was not reporting on the details of the crime, because then that would go to the police and so on. But generally, an institution under his docket which has had a problem. But Bank of Uganda itself should have issued a statement, in my view.
Sydney Asubo, last word on the capital gang. I don't know if I have to invite all others who applied for KCCA job. They're going to say how
In
come-
case.
in case
You are chosen.
yes, I might have to do the same.
No. I will not talk about KCCA today.
But first, we can wish you luck.
Yeah. Thank you. But my last word is the current base to money for Uganda. That is the size of the financial service sector. There is a formula that is used by the World Bank and the IMF. Is $8 billion. In the projections by the central bank, that in 4 years' time it will be about $12 billion. Now, this makes it one of the biggest in sub-Saharan Africa. So that gives you the magnitude of the risks and vulnerabilities that are in the sector. So we at the FIA, together with the Ministry of Justice and of Finance and the other financial sector regulators, did risk assessment, the risks that are in this economy, and the vulnerabilities as well. And then one of the fundamental recommendations we made was the promotion of the e-economy, because one of the drawbacks was the fact that a lot of we are largely cash economy, so that's why you have things like boda running away with money, 500 shillings being forged notes being found in a bank, somebody disappearing with a bullion van, 1 billion shillings. Now, the larger economy you have, the lesser you have of these instances. So, of course, we now urge government to take, because it was a medium to long-term strategy, to formalize the economy. So that will be my last word today.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners of the Capital Gang. Continue following us on our social media platforms. Thank you, Star Cafe, for powering the gang. I'm not sure if Sydney had any bite at all, or he brought his chapati in the pocket.
No.
Okay,
I trust people in this room.
You trust people in this room.
Yes.
So thank you, Honorable Katuntu, Honorable Wanyoto. Thank you, FIA, former head of FIA, and good luck with your next ongoings, I should say. Thank you, Council Musisi.
Governor, Bank of Uganda, and the ED for Capital Authority.
Thank you so much. I am Oscar Semwe Amsoke, and I